Being great at sales is essential to your business and your career, but you and I both know that the stress of selling and dealing with constant rejection can be an emotional drain. My entire brand, No BS Selling, is based on the belief that professional sales is a skill and not a personality, and that to be better at sales takes constant refinement and a dedication to your craft. This show is for salespeople and entrepreneurs who are committed to improving their sales skills and getting better results, and are sick and tired of the BS game that often happens between buyers and sellers. Welcome to the No BS Sales Podcast, and I'm your host, Walker McKay. I'll help you and your sales team make selling easier, feel less cheesy, and be more lucrative. It's time to change the rules and level the playing field between you and the people you sell to. You're already good, let's be better. Welcome to the No BS Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Walker McKay. I've got a killer guest today. I think you guys are going to like. Her name is Wendy Weiss. Wendy she has trademarked the name, the Queen of Cold Calling. She's an author, a speaker, a sales trainer, and sales coach, and is recognized as one of the leading authorities on lead generation, cold calling, and new business development. Wendy believes that everything she knows in life and business, she learned in ballet class because she started as a ballerina. Wendy, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Walker. Happy to be here.
So glad. So the reason I've invited Wendy on the show is she does something that a lot of people say doesn't work. Cold calling doesn't work. And I want her, she and I will, especially her, will dispel that myth. And she's going to share some secrets with us today about how she does cold calling and why it works and how she trains people to do it. So let me start with you, with this, Wendy. How in the world does one go from being a ballet dancer to the queen of cold calling?
Thank you for asking that, Walker. And the answer is completely by accident. I needed a day job. I answered an ad in Backstage, which was the trade publication that we would use to find auditions. And there was a telemarketing agency that was looking to hire actors because actors can read scripts and sound lifelike. And so I got this day job. I wasn't an actor. Ballet dancers, we don't talk. We just dance. Right. But I got the day job, and it turned out I was good at it, which was a complete surprise. And I did that day job for a while. I quit because I got a dance gig.
And I want to stop you for a second. Before you go too deep into that, I want people to understand that you weren't just somebody who took dance from age 4 to age 14 and that kind of ballet. You were a principal in a couple of ballets, were you not? Or certainly a dancer in a large ballet.
I danced with Pittsburgh Ballet Theater, also with the Cincinnati Ballet. I was not a principal. Okay. I was in the Corps of Ballet.
There you go.
So, but I did that for many, many, many years.
What does that mean? Does that mean, and I know we're not supposed to talk about age or anything, but how long do you think you danced ballet and I know you still do it now, kind of, I'm going to say as a hobby, not professionally anymore, correct?
Correct. Not professionally anymore.
How long did you dance professionally, Wendy?
About 10 years.
Okay. Wow. That's a long tenure in your business. That's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah. Danced till I couldn't walk.
Oh, hip replacements, I think, right? Two of them?
Two of them. I set off metal detectors, so.
So what is it from ballet that made you so good at what you do now?
Well, the first lesson that I learned in ballet class was to follow direction. So when I got that day job all those years ago, they trained me. I was really lucky because they taught me this skill. And because I had learned to follow direction as a dancer, that's what we do. The choreographer gives you direction and that's what you do. Yep. And so I did what they told me to do and it worked. And I thought it was kind of fun.
Isn't that funny?
It was easier than dancing.
So how many calls were you making a day when you first started? You remember?
Well, when I got that day job, the goal was we had to do 20 what they call completed calls, meaning you actually spoke with the person that you wanted to speak with. Yep. And out of those 20 completed calls, they wanted you to set 2 appointments. And the first day on the job, I made 3 phone calls, talked to 3 people and made 3 appointments. And then I got up and went to the manager and said, what do you want me to do now?
That is freaking awesome.
Well, I followed the script.
Yeah. It's amazing, right? If people just do what they're told to do most of the time, it works.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So,
Tony Robbins said, you know, find somebody that knows how to do what you want to do and do what they do.
yeah, right. And so what is it, what's the gift other than, I think it's built incredible, I'm going to call it toughness. You might use another word. So the ballet thing, you've learned to follow instructions, but also think it takes a certain mindset to be able to sit and, you know, some people would say grind out calls for a long period of time. What else is about, I mean, is it the toughness is translated as well?
Well, the toughness is certainly part of it, but it's not the only part of it. I know that there are some of my colleagues that teach this topic will say, prospecting sucks, get over it.
Right, yeah.
And, you know, I don't really think that that's particularly helpful. But it is helpful to take the long view. And that's what you do when you're dancing. It takes 10 years to train a dancer. And you go and you take a ballet class. When you're training, you're taking 3 or 4 ballet classes every single day.
Wow.
For 10 years. And then once you're dancing professionally, you're still taking class.
Right.
So you have to take the long view. It is a skill. People talk about it as if it's an intuitive thing that the born salesperson, they're born with the gift of gab. Not true. I am actually rather shy.
So, and so is talking on the phone easier for you than face-to-face, would you say, as a shy person, or are you getting your persona? How do you do that?
Well, the persona, having the persona and having the script.
Yeah.
One of the things that we teach, I mean, we follow the model I learned in ballet class, which is warm up, rehearse, perform.
Okay.
What most people do when they're going to start prospecting for new business is they just jump into the performance.
Right.
And so what we do, we have to warm up. If you're a dancer, you have to warm up, take, you know, stretch out, loosen up, so that you don't hurt yourself.
Right.
And then you
or
have
somebody else, for God's sake.
or somebody else. And then you have to rehearse. You don't just run out on stage and start dancing. You've been rehearsing.
So what does warm up mean in the cold calling business?
Well, the warm up is what's the target? We always start there. What's the target? Because the answer is not everyone.
Right.
We teach our clients to actually micro target.
What does that mean?
Well, what we're doing is we're looking for everybody out of the entire world that maybe might buy some teeny tiny little thing from you. Who are the best bets? Who are the ones that are likely to buy a lot and come back and buy a whole lot more?
Yep.
And what are the parameters that describe that type of company? We're kind of looking for prospects that match the profile of our best clients.
Makes perfect sense, right? So do you, obviously there's a software that you use for that. What is it that you use to help find the best match, or you recommend people use?
Well, we actually recommend people start by looking at their client list and profiling their client.
Makes perfect sense, yeah. Right?
So once you have done that, and once you have the profile, and I have to emphasize, you need objective criteria. But
Right.
Lots of times when we're working with clients, they'll say, oh, well, we're looking for people that understand the value that we bring.
Oh.
And you know, we all want that.
Yeah, of course we do. You know, it happens usually a month after they've been using our stuff.
But you can't Google that. You know, you're like, where are you going to find these people? So, you know, we make them get very specific. And then once we have that specific profile, then we can make recommendations depending on what the profile is of where to go to get a list.
Programs. There are different software programs and lists and stuff that people can use to find that stuff.
Exactly. Right? And then once we've done that, the next step in the warm-up is, what are you going to say to these people that's going to get their attention and their engagement? And that's a question of what's the challenge that they have that you can help them with? And how do they talk about it? Because everybody loves to talk in their industry jargon, and you know, they pull this crap from their website, the marketing, you know, the marketing copy, and they use that as their introduction. And human beings do not talk like that.
Yeah, and when you start spewing the features and benefits stuff, nobody gives a shit, right? You're not matching with what they're looking for. So. So let me cover something quickly, because we probably already had some people say cold calling, schmold calling, that doesn't work. Will you help please with me address that is a bunch of bullshit, that cold calling doesn't work? Will you please help me address that?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. You know, the first thing I'll say is cold calling doesn't work the way it used to. That's for sure.
Okay.
But here's my definition of a cold call. That's anytime you reach out to someone that you do not know or you don't know them well.
Yep.
Think back to how many people you've had fill out forms on your website, and you call them up to talk to them. They say they want to be contacted, and they say they want to talk to you, and they have no idea what you're talking about. And they deny they have any kind of interest. Or they're opening all of your emails. So you call them up and you say, you must be interested in, and they don't know what you're talking about. And they say, well, I'm just looking, we'll call you if we're interested. Or it turns out it's the secretary, it's not actually the person you want to talk to.
Right, exactly.
Those are cold calls.
I think they're called assistants now, by the way, Wendy. They're no longer secretaries.
So the executive assistants.
And we're very PC on this show. So
okay, so they are assistants. And
all right, so you're talking about, you know, we reach out to people that maybe they've been playing on our website or they've downloaded something, and we reach out to them, and invariably you're correct. No, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, or that wasn't me, or no, I'm not interested in that, right? Same thing getting retail. No thanks, I don't want any help, right?
Exactly. And, you know, there's this construct of warm and cold, which is something that salespeople made up. And,
yes.
And your leads, your prospects do not think of themselves as warm.
Right.
And they do not think, oh, I'm warm, so I'm going to behave in a certain way.
Yes.
They just think, who's this person that's calling me or emailing me, and what do they want? And am I interested in this? Mm-hmm. And if the answer is no, I'm not interested in this, they're not going to talk to you. So it's, rather than worrying about, oh, it's a cold call, it's a warm call, pick up the phone, but have something compelling to say.
I like to think of it with my clients, to tell them, don't think of it as cold call versus warm call. It's a prospecting call. For God's sake, get over yourself, right? But you actually had a comment when you and I were talking before this, and you made the comment a few minutes ago. You said some people will say prospecting is hard, you know, get over it, do it anyway. And you said that's not effective. And you shared something really cool with me before. Tell me why you think that's not an effective kind of mindset that the manager should have.
Well, if you start off on any journey thinking it's going to be horrible, it's really hard to do.
Yeah.
But what if it was just something you do? What if we were able to take the emotion out of it? Because, you know, the conversation about cold calling is frequently stupid, because it's, you know, it's everybody hates cold calling, and then there's a handful of people that love it.
Yep.
But the opposite of hating it is not, now you love it. Like, I'm not here to tell you, you know, everyone that's listening, you should love this.
Yeah.
The opposite of hating it is that you are neutral.
Yeah.
That this is just, it's a business function. It's not an emotional experience. And, you know, you're going to dial the phone. You're going to either reach the person or not. If you reach them, they're going to say something, you're going to say something, and that's pretty much it.
Isn't that funny? Just take the pressure off, and we get when whoever's dialing the phone to them, and you feel so vulnerable and like somebody might, you know, do something horrible. The reality is they won't even remember that you called 48 hours later. They won't remember your name within 24 hours, no matter how bad you screwed it up, usually, right?
Absolutely. And we just actually, we tell our clients, if they're really, really nervous, because we always divide leads into A's, B's, and C's. And the A's are like the wish list. And then the B's are the really, you know, they're really good leads. And then the C stands for crummy. So Start with the, if you're really uncomfortable, start with the crummy leads.
Right.
It's low risk. It's
Don't
just
practice on your best ones, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you, these are, I call them cannon fodder, but that may not be the proper term, right? Just those are people, it doesn't matter how you do it. Those are a good place to warm up. It's a great idea.
And here's, when we spoke the other day, Walker, I told you my story about learning how to do fouettes.
Yeah, do explain that. That's awesome. Please go into that. And there are probably some people in my audience that did not grow up dancing ballet. So if you'll explain what that is and tell that story, I loved it.
Absolutely. The supreme test for a ballerina, at the end of the great classical ballet, Swan Lake, Giselle, Nutcracker, Coppelia, there's always a duet for the two principal dancers. Mm-hmm. And as part of that duet, the ballerina must perform 32 fouettes. And a fouette is a turn on one leg. You turn all the way around without putting your other leg down. And you're on your toes, you're on point, and you have to turn around 32 times in a row on point without falling down. You can't put your other leg down. And wherever you start out on the floor, you're not supposed to move from that spot. Wow. And your audience counts. So if you do 31,
count. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I said you did, right?
And
it's like you're a top. It's like somebody spun a top and it's supposed to stay right in the same place.
Exactly. And so the way you learn how to do that is, the standard wisdom is to execute 32 fouettes on stage. You have to do 64 in class. So the way you learn how to do that is you're in front of the mirror, the music starts, it's always this really circusy music, and you start doing fouettes and you do like one and you fall down. And then you get back up and you do another one and then you fall down. And then eventually you can do 2 and then you fall down. But the thing is, if you keep doing it, believe it or not, over time, you can execute 64 fouettes, which is 64 turns on one leg, on point, without putting the other leg down and without moving from that spot where you started out.
And then how mad does it make you as a ballerina when you do 32 or 64 fouettes and somebody says, "Oh, you're a natural."
Yeah. Yeah, right. That's true. Naturally gifted.
You and I talked about this, I think, a little while ago about people that are, quote, natural salespeople. And that what I tell people is that there is no such thing. However, there are people that think they are. And often that means that's somebody who talks too much and is probably pushy.
Yeah.
But the ones that are good at it, it takes years and years of getting your damn butt kicked and doing the work and learning and having coaches and doing all those things.
Yeah. But I will say that, telephone prospecting, cold calling, it is a communication skill. It can be learned. It can be improved on. It takes 10 years to train a ballet dancer. It will not take you 10 years. It will not even take you as long as it took me to learn how to do fouettes. We do a program and at the end of 3 months, people are setting a lot of appointments. So we call it 3X because their number is triple.
So what's the goal? And I think this should be true in every business. I bet it's true in yours. What's the goal of a cold call?
The goal of a cold call is an appointment.
Yeah, it's to set an appointment.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so many people make that so confusing, or they think about, oh, I've got to build a relationship or whatever. And that's a bunch of bull hockey. It's set an appointment realistically.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I'm going to say something really controversial. I think we talked about it the other day, which is that consultative selling doesn't work for prospecting. It's these are two different things. It's prospecting. It's like dating. First, you have to ask the person on the date. Then you go on the date.
Right. And then you can discover if they're the right fit.
Exactly. So selling is like you go on the date.
Right.
Prospecting is like you ask someone for the date.
Interesting. So and it's speed dating, right? You're knocking on the door and whoever opens you see, right?
Yeah. So the goal is, and my definition of the word appointment is that your prospect agrees to have an in-depth, and I'm using the word in-depth conversation with you. So maybe you get in your car and you go see them one day. or maybe you do a Zoom call with them, or maybe you do everything over the phone, but you first have to get them to agree to have an in-depth conversation. You cannot, here's my issue about consultative selling. You can't consult with somebody that won't talk to you.
Correct. Right. Yeah. Yeah. If you can't make the connection. So I've read, there's a guy named Jeb Blunt, who you may have heard of before. One of my favorite sales books was ones that he wrote, and it's called Fanatical Prospecting.
Right.
And he talks about said the goal of prospecting, quite frankly, is connection and familiarity. Because oftentimes we may not set an appointment with somebody the first time we talk to them or the second time we talk to them. Do you have that same belief that you were continuing to call?
Yes, my goal and my goal for my clients is always that they're able to set an appointment. But some people will not set an appointment the first time you talk to them. Although the more skilled you are, the more likely it is that they will say yes.
Interesting.
Because you may never talk to them again.
Right, sure.
And then the other piece of this is for the people you can't reach, to get some of them to return your phone call or respond to your email.
How do you use voicemail? Well, tell me your thoughts about voicemail, and can you share kind of what voicemail you might leave with somebody? I know you explained to me you've got this cool software that actually handles that. As soon as you get somebody's voicemail, it leaves the recording for you, correct?
Right. Well, we use, and also I recommend to my clients, that we use a dialer, where you can pre-record your voicemail messages. So it really speeds you up. If you get voicemail, you just drop the message.
Yep.
But what we teach is a voicemail campaign. It's a voicemail and email campaign.
Okay.
Which is, think of it as like a drip campaign.
Yep.
For voicemail and email. So, all the research shows that it takes between 8 to 12 touches to get someone to respond. So we usually start with 8, which is 4 voicemails and 4 emails. And
do you mind sharing with me what your first couple of voicemails sound like?
Well, the formula, the template that we use for the voicemails, because here's the thing, Walker, and everyone that's listening, generic doesn't work.
Right.
You really need to, that's why at the beginning of our conversation today, I talked about micro-targeting, because what you say has to be relevant to the person you're saying it to, or you're leaving the message for. Or they won't call you back. And
the only reason to leave a voicemail is to get somebody to call you back, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, it's the only reason.
You want a response. And same thing with the email. And so first thing that you do is
pick a specific industry you've worked with, and just kind of share, if you don't mind, just share what the first maybe 2 voicemail messages you might leave. Could you do that?
Well, sure. The formula is first, say hello, say your name, and say your phone number slowly so the person that's listening to it can write it down.
Yep.
Then we say something like, we have a track record of, and you plug in how you help your clients.
Yep.
So an example, this is a script. We do a lot of work with folks in commercial real estate. This is a script that we have used very successfully. We specialize in working with managing directors in the commercial real estate industry that are sick of micromanaging junior brokers that don't produce. And what that does is it actually, one, if they don't have any junior brokers, they're going to respond and tell us that, and we can take them off the list, because we can't tell that ahead of time.
Right, of course.
And usually it makes them laugh, so they respond.
Right, because
they're like, I'm sick of
an emotional hook that they may have said themselves. I totally get that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we give an example. I'm a big believer in storytelling. So, for example, and we tell a 3-sentence story about a client that was tearing out his hair because he had these junior brokers that he was babysitting. And then, love to talk to you. Give me a call back. Again, this is Wendy Weiss, and I give my phone number really slowly.
Yep. And so this is 60 seconds or less, correct?
60 seconds or less. And I send exactly the same thing in an email immediately after.
Got it. So it's recapped exactly the same way.
Yeah, and I do not say, I just left you a voicemail or anything like that. I'm just giving them, they can, usually here's what's interesting. Usually they respond to the email, but if we stop leaving the voicemails, the response rate goes down. There's actual research from the Booth School of Business at the University of Chicago that shows that when people hear you talk, even if it's only on a voicemail, they're more likely to act on whatever it is you're talking about.
I didn't know that. That's fascinating. And that makes perfect sense. I totally get that.
Yeah.
So one question that well, let me do this. Let me tell you what I think I've learned from you, some of the things I've learned from you today. And because this has really been interesting to me. I love that you spend time with warm up. You ask people when they're warming up to really think about who their target is and down to the micro level. And also to, think about what it is you're going to say, because I think 99.999% of salespeople do not think 1 second before they walk into a sales call before they pick up the phone. I think there is mostly 0% processing before that happens. They're just, okay, and they just wing it, which I think is the first sign of a non-professional. So I love that you talked about that. I also, I loved your voicemail script. I love the fact that it's that compact. I worked with a guy one time and he would leave like 9-minute voicemails. And I said, nobody knows because nobody listened past about 9 seconds. But your message is compelling and attracts people. And then you follow up with exactly the same thing in email. I think that's great information. Let me ask you a question before I get your information. One more question. And this is going to catch you off guard, but so I'm just going to say it anyway. I'm going to ask it anyway. What's the kindest thing, Wendy, that anybody's ever done for you?
The kindest thing anyone has ever done for me.
And you can pick one.
Actually,
kind. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's actually going on right now. I have a wonderful cat that I adopted whose name is Beekman. Beekman was not properly socialized, so when I adopted him, I couldn't even pet him. But he is turning into a love cat. Here's the thing, though. January 1st of this year, Beekman had his first epileptic seizure.
Oh.
And he has had a lot of seizures, and he is on medication. He's on anticonvulsant medication. And if he doesn't get his medication, he will have a seizure. And because he wasn't properly socialized, he's not an easy cat to give medication to. And so I have to give him this medication twice a day, and I cannot always catch him. And I am petrified because if he doesn't get his medication, he's going to have a seizure. And I have a neighbor who used to be a vet tech. And if I can't give him the medicine, even though we are, and I'm in New York City, we're still on lockdown.
Oh God.
Even though we're in the middle of this pandemic still, I will call her and she will come over. We're both wearing our masks, and we will catch him and we make sure he gets his medicine.
Wow.
And so a shout out to my neighbor Itzel.
That is really
who I just can't thank her enough. And, she's saving Beekman's life. And so that's getting my shout out today.
That's a great thing. And I hope that she'll listen to this episode. Tell me something. How do people get in touch with you, Wendy? Because you've got some great giveaways. I've been to your website. Tell me how people can get in touch with you.
Okay. Thank you for asking that. Our main website is coldcallingresults.com.
Okay.
However, I have 2 gifts for our listeners today, and you're gonna post them right below this this interview, right?
Yeah, on the show notes. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the first, for any of you that are making outbound prospecting calls, we have the Cold Calling Survival Guide. The subtitle is Start Setting Appointments in the Next 24 Hours. So it is a step-by-step guide to start setting appointments in the next 24 hours. And then my second gift is for those of you business owners that might be managing a sales team, because one of the questions so many business owners ask me is, how do I get my sales team to prospect?
Prospect, for God's sake, right?
And so we have the practical guide to getting sales teams to prospect. And it's very step by step, the things that you need to look for, the things you need to have in place, some of the mind trash things that we didn't really have a chance to talk about today. So that's all in the practical guide to getting sales teams to prospect. So I invite you to download whichever is your situation, or both.
I have downloaded both and read both, and will endorse this to the NoBS sales team, that these are great things for you to have. They give great insight. Wendy's a super person to know. Reach out to her. She's got a good newsletter. So there are lots of ways that you can learn more about Wendy Weiss. NoBS sales team, I'm so glad you guys listened. I bet you got some good advice today. I would love it if you would email me, Walker@WalkerMckay, and tell me what you learned today on this show, and I'll share it. I have a newsletter that a lot of you guys get every week. If you want to get the newsletter, if you go to, if you text the letters NOBS to the number 66866, text NOBS, the number 66866, you can get our newsletter list. And also have something called 7salesmistakes.com, which is a free video series. Download that to see what some mistakes you may be making in sales and what you can do about them. And also, in about a week, I think my course, the NoBS Sales Process, NoBS Sales System course, will be for sale. So I'll have more information on that as we come along. Wendy Weiss, thank you so much for being a part of this show. You've been super fun, and I'm so glad I got to know you.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here today.